Have you ever felt like someone used you just to get ahead?
No.
At my tender age, no, I haven't.
No, I've never felt that way.
No.
It's happened.
Not that I know of. Maybe on a paper or something.
Not too often.
Yeah, a couple times.
People wouldn't do that to me. People respect me, at least I think so.
It's probably happened before.
In a sport, I've been used to get ahead, I guess.
There's this girl named Courtney, right? She came over to my house just to see my brother. My brother is kind of cute, though. But she just used me to come see my brother, and I wasn't having it.
My girlfriend dated me so she could get a free limo to prom.
My ex-girlfriend used me to get to my best friend, Steve.
I know a girl who went out with a guy to get closer to his older brother.
One of my friends would just like, if she needed a ride somewhere, she'd be like, oh, do you want to come with me because I need a ride?
My friend Khadija, she used me for some money because she wanted to go somewhere. She had me money to drive in her car, so she used me for some money to get a ride.
It just felt like a friend used me to get other friends and then ditched me.
Well, there's this guy who I know. We work in the same place, and he kind of like used our friendship to like get promoted, and it wasn't cool.
Have you ever been the victim of being used just so someone else could benefit?
In a world as competitive as ours, with focus paid so much on the individual, we sometimes only see how to better ourselves.
Even if this involves stepping on our friends, family, classmates, and coworkers to achieve the things we want.
Using people to get ahead, that's what we'll be talking about today. Hi everyone, I'm Jack.
And I'm Jess.
And this is Realfaith TV. Most of the teens in the street had personal experiences with being used. Some left feeling more hurt than others.
We'll talk with them a little later in the show, as well as meet our studio guests.
But first, let's meet our spotlight guest, Danielle, who will share with us how others took advantage of her home situation to throw a party.
My freshman year of high school, I remember my parents were away and they had left me home, and my grandpa was over and was like, he used to go to bed at like, God knows, like really early. So my friend, not really my friends, but at the time I wanted to be friends with them because they were the popular crew at school, and I felt, okay, well, if I did what they wanted me to, maybe they'd accept me and I could be friends with them and people would like me. So they were looking for a place to have a party. So I was like, all right, you know what? I'll let them come to my house, do whatever. So they came to my house and they walked in with all this alcohol, and I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, I didn't want you to bring alcohol to my house. And they said, well, that's what we do when we go to a party. And I knew that at the time it was really bad and I didn't want them at my house drinking. And in the long run, I was the one that got in trouble, and it cost me a couple of groundings and it wasn't fun. So we went to school on Monday. Come Monday, this was like Friday night or Saturday, and they didn't even talk to me. So I did feel like I was used in that situation, and it kind of stunk going back to school, and they didn't talk to me. They were just using me for a house to be at that weekend. In the same way, I was using them, but it was kind of my fault too. I wouldn't say that I actually went up to them and told them how I felt, which I probably should have done because, I'm one to talk about my feelings and stuff, but I felt that if I had went to them and told them, they'd just think I was like more of a loser. My faith is really what got me through that. It made me feel better about myself, and it helped me get through the situation.
I think a lot of girls are always kind of in that situation where they want to be like the popular one or whatever. I know like when I went into high school, like I was so determined to be like the girl everybody wanted to be or whatever. So, I like kind of chose my friends like based on that. And I mean, I guess my friends definitely changed like over the past year, but it was like, I didn't really have any real friends because we were all just using each other to get that popularity.
Yeah, I definitely did the same thing the first 2 years of high school, and then I kind of changed my whole all my friends because I realized I didn't want to use people to get ahead. But let's see what our studio guests have to say on the subject.
They are Leah, Vince, Anne-Marie, Casey, Matt, and Phil.
So, in what ways have you guys felt used in order for someone else to get ahead?
Well, this past year I had a project, and my group, we all designated parts that we had to do, and I did my part, and then the rest of my group kind of one by one asked for my help, and I didn't think much of it. And then at the end of it, I kind of realized I kind of did the whole project, and and then I kind of realized that it wasn't like they wanted my help. It was more like they didn't want to do their part, and they knew that I would help them. So even though we got a good grade, I kind of felt cheated because I ended up doing the whole thing.
Yeah, I see that a lot in school situations. This is why I stay away from group projects. But in school sometimes, say you're a good student and, people around you would want to, study with you or, be your friend just so they can better themselves. And then when you go back to them, it's like, oh, hey, let's go to the movies this weekend. Oh, I'm busy. Or like the classic excuse, oh, I have to wash my hair. Something came up.
Yeah, I lent this girl my homework for history, and it was like 3 pages long, and she was my close friend. She didn't do it the night before, and when she gave it back, my locker is super messy, so I just shoved it in my locker, and then when it was time for history class, I couldn't find it. We went to class, and the teacher gave her credit. She was like, those answers were super good. She gave her praise, and I was super mad. I got a 0 for that.
Yeah, I know at the beginning of last year, my friend was only friends with me because I was friends with this girl and he liked her. So he was only being friends with me just so he could get to her. And I know I was always being used like, oh, go tell her I said this. Oh, go tell him I said that. Until finally I realized, forget this. I'm not going to be used in a situation where I don't really want to do that. So.
Yeah, like the same thing happened to me. One of my close friends who I'd known for a while liked my best friend. So they basically used me because he was uncomfortable. So I would always go along with them so they could hang out. And then I was sort of like pushed out, like they'd talk and I was just there. So it really frustrated me.
It's not always clear for us to recognize when we are being taken advantage of, especially when it's by our own friends.
It might just be easier to suppress this feeling of being used rather than risk losing the friendship.
Unfortunately, it's only until we really feel burned that we do anything about it, and it's usually not pretty.
But have we ever stopped to think that some of our own motivations have selfishly stepped on others?
Have you ever taken advantage of someone else in order to get yourself ahead?
That's what we asked the teens on the street.
Let's check it out.
Do you think that you yourself have ever taken advantage of someone to get ahead?
No, never.
Probably.
I can't say I haven't. I'm sure everybody has.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to get on people's good side.
I just used this boy in school just for his homework one time.
I hope I didn't. I might have been not meant to.
Yeah, I used many people.
No, I'm not like that. I'd consider that bullying.
They had like a really nice house and a lot of really nice stuff, so I just pretended to be friends with them. I felt really guilty after it, so I didn't want to do it anymore.
Do I do that? No.
I've always worked on my own merit. I'd prefer to get things on my own merits and not on someone else's.
No, I don't do that because I think it's really wrong and I don't like people doing this to me, so I will never do that.
Like I make a conscious decision like all the time to try not to do that to people because I hate when it's done to me.
Loath as I am to admit it, I'm guilty of using people as well. For example, in high school they have proms and stuff, junior, senior prom. And I've gone to like 5 or 6 in my time, and 2 or 3 of those times were with people who I wouldn't exactly call my friends, like I wasn't really close with them. It was just because I wanted to go to the prom, and like my friends were going too, so I was just hanging out with them and everything. It ended up being like really awkward, and I shouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I used the girl just to get invited to her party. I never really talked to her, and I was always mean to her. And when she invited me, I felt so bad. And after that, we became friends.
That's funny because I almost did the same thing. My boyfriend was invited to, I guess, his friend's party, but I didn't know the girl. But I just used her and was really nice to her so that I could go with my boyfriend. But then afterwards, I felt pretty guilty about it. But now we're friends, so it's kind of funny.
In a different instance, when I use people, it's like, remember last week when I let you borrow my homework? Yeah, I didn't do that math assignment. Can I just see that for a second?
Yeah, I know this girl. We were having like an election for president, and she always goes up to different people, and if she goes to one crowd, she'll talk like them, act like them. Then all of a sudden she'll walk up to a completely different crowd and start talking and acting like them. And everyone saw right through her and knew that she was fake and everything. And so it was just like, why did she do that?
Last year, I really liked this one boy, and what I started to do was I became friends with all his friends, and then he got a girlfriend, so I was like, that's not good. So I became really good friends with her. At first I just pretended to be her friend, but somewhere along the lines we actually became best friends. And I actually ended up getting together with her boyfriend and stuff, which was what I wanted to do. But then in the end, I was after they broke up because of me, she hated me, the whole group hated me, and I had to find a completely different group of friends. And it really changed I think it changed the whole way I would have acted throughout high school.
The truth is, even without realizing it, the majority of us are guilty of using others to get ahead.
If only 1 or 2 students do all of the work for a group project, those who did not contribute but benefited from the grade have used the others to get ahead.
Making fun of someone or pointing out someone's inadequacies so that one's own work will go unnoticed is taking advantage of another for personal gain.
Copying another's homework or calling someone only when you want something from them are other examples of using people to get ahead.
In all of these circumstances, the person being used is seen for only one aspect of who they really are.
Next, Danielle talks about how she was guilty of using a fellow classmate to ensure a better grade in algebra.
And how she sought forgiveness after realizing the pain she had inflicted.
I remember one year where I was struggling a lot in algebra, and there was this smart, nerdy kid, I guess you could say, who everyone used to pick on and would make fun of because he would always get the hundreds in the class. One day I was like, you know what, let's try to be nice to him. Maybe he'll help me out with my math or whatever. So I went up to him, and me being the person that I am, and I am sweet, but I really just wanted to talk to him to see if he would help me with math, and then if I got a good grade, then that would be it, and I wouldn't talk to him again. And I went to him, and he was like, yeah, I'll help you, no problem. And he helped me with my math. I actually did better than I thought I would on my test that I took. And I found myself the next, couple weeks where I didn't talk to him. And you could tell that he was kind of upset because he would if I was with my friends, he'd say hi to me, and I'd kind of ignore him and laugh at him because, he wasn't really the cool kid in the class or the cool kid in school. And after that, I felt horrible. At the time, it worked for me, and it helped me get ahead in my math and helped me get better grades, so I was like, why not? So there was one day after class where I went up to him and I talked to him, and I was like, look, I'm really sorry. I know I've been kind of mean to you, and I feel bad that I just used you so that I could get better with my math grades. And he was like, yeah, this happens to me a lot. And then I felt even worse about the situation and how I treated him, because I'm not usually like that. And I apologized for being a really big jerk. The rest of the year, I tried to be nice to him as much as I could, and we talked and whatever, but it really wasn't the same where it was before.
After I got what I wanted and that girl and her boyfriend broke up, I felt horrible, even though I got what I wanted. And I couldn't stand this, the way this girl was treating me. She was ignoring me, and I knew I deserved it, which probably bothered me the most. So, I apologized to her. I was crying in front of her, and I guess it got better, but we were never that same level of friendship again. And I guess it was because it was started under false pretenses, but I would do anything to have not done that in the past.
At least you realized, that it was wrong and everything. Some people go through life using people and not really realizing that's wrong at all. So, how about you guys? Has forgiveness helped to heal the hurt that comes when someone's used in your experience?
Well, of course you feel better when someone forgives you, but half the time they don't really, they'll say it's no big deal, but deep down they'll still feel that hurt and pain. So you can't really trust it half the time when people say that they forgive you. And also, sometimes it makes me feel worse when they forgive me because I realize they're being the better person, they're stepping it up, and they're saying, you know what, I forgive you for this, and I just feel bad for hurting them in the first place.
Yeah, I definitely agree with her, because I know when people say, oh, I'm sorry to you, I'll just be like, yeah, I forgive you, when I don't really mean it, because I'm still mad at them, and I'll hold a grudge for a long time. And then finally, after a long while, I really will, forgive them.
Yeah, I think forgiveness is one of the hardest things to do, and I know when I'm used, it's really important for me to take a step back and really forgive them when I feel ready to, but I really do think it's important, and that's why I take the time to do it the right way.
When my friend used me, I pointed out to her, I was like, oh, you're using me. And a couple hours later, she called me and she told me she was really sorry she had been a jerk. And I was like, oh, it's okay. But after I hung up, I still felt really bad because it occurred to me just that day that she was using me. And though I really did forgive her and we're now still friends, it still hurt inside a lot.
Sometimes you can forgive too easily. If you're being used, I think you need to confront that person if you ever realize it and make sure that they know that they're hurting you. And say it's a cheating type thing, in school, they're hurting themselves. Say they cheat on a test off of you or something like that, or copy your homework. They're just diminishing their education or something like that. So I think that they need to acknowledge the fact that they're using you so that you can go on with your life and that they can go on with theirs, and you can still be friends possibly.
As Danielle related in her story, when people use others, it is often disguised as seeking help.
In such ways, those offering their assistance put their integrity on the line and no doubt feel betrayed,
making their ability to forgive and re-earn their trust that much more difficult.
What's the difference between using someone to get ahead and asking for help?
That's what we asked the teens on the street.
Let's take a look.
well, using somebody, they don't really know that they're helping you, but if you ask them to help you, then it's fair.
If you ask somebody to help you, you expect to pay them back sometime down the road or pay back somebody else.
Using someone is without their permission, like they don't know that you're using them. And with their permission, like you're allowed to be using them, I guess.
When you ask for help, then you tell them that you actually mean, and you ask them if they want to help. And when you use somebody, you don't tell them, you just do it.
Using someone is betraying their trust, and if you just ask them, they're understanding more.
Because you might just hurt them in the end if you don't ask.
If you ask someone for help, then you wouldn't have the guilt of using them.
Using someone, like, you just want what's best for yourself, and it doesn't matter what kind of position you put the other person in, but if you ask someone for help, like, there's some benefit for them too.
I gotta disagree with the teens in the street on this one point. A lot of them seem to feel that if you got the person's permission, then it was okay to use them, and I think that doesn't always apply, because there's a lot of times when someone's gonna feel pressured to give you their permission, if they feel like socially they're not able to say no, like let's say the really cool people at school kind of ask like, yo, can we have a party at your house this Friday? You're not gonna be like, oh no, actually that'd be using me. That wouldn't happen, So I think a lot of times people feel pressured to say yes, and that's how people get used. They give their permission, but it's kind of like a social pressure.
Yeah, I agree. I think using people in any situation is just wrong. Let's go back to our spotlight guest Danielle, where she talks about how her best friend was used for her car.
And how, through a false sense of helping another person, she was only being manipulated.
One of my best friends, she does have some kind of learning disabilities and stuff like that, and she's always looking for people to be her friend, and she had just gotten her license, and she was all excited because she got her license and she was allowed to go and do whatever, and her so-called best friend would always use her for rides and ditch her, but only call her when he wanted to ride somewhere or when he wanted to go to a party, and he knew that if he called her, she would say, oh yeah, no problem, no problem. Well, there was one night where he went to a party and it was not a good situation and he needed a ride home. So it was 3 o'clock in the morning and he calls her, and at 17 you're still on restricted license, and she broke the curfew, snuck out of her house, and she went out and got him, and then he never even said thank you to her, treated her like dirt when he saw her in school. And I tried to talk to her and tell her that, he's just using you for rides and stuff like that, why aren't you seeing this? What you're doing is wrong. You're gonna get in a lot of trouble, and if you don't stop it, he's just gonna keep taking advantage of you, and you deserve a lot better than that. And she wouldn't listen, and then a couple months down the road, she did finally realize that, I shouldn't do this anymore. He's really mean to me in school, but only calls me when he wants rides somewhere or wants to go to parties.
Like Danielle's best friend, have you ever been in a situation where seeking help turned into someone being taken advantage of?
Yeah, I can't spell at all. Sometimes I'll put EEGS for eggs, or random 3rd grade words that I can't spell at all. And my best friend happens to be the best speller in our whole grade. So she'll always spell check all my essays and everything. And it used to be kind of she'd ask me if I wanted her to do it. And recently it's kind of been oh, I just wrote this, let me go ask her to do this, that. And it's gotten to the point where if I write anything, I have to ask her, and I feel bad at times because I feel she doesn't really want to do it anymore.
I know someone on the basketball team that I have, she didn't have a starting spot, and she really wanted that starting spot, so she asked one of the starting players to help her out. And eventually, as time went by, the girl who wanted the spot got better than the girl who had the spot, and she ended up taking the starting spot. And even though she just wanted her help in the beginning, she kind of used her to get the spot because she knew she was getting better than her as time went on. So she kind of took the spot from her.
I remember when I didn't feel like doing my homework, and I would ask this girl for her notebook, and she would lend it to me once or twice, and I kept doing it for a routine over and over again, and I just kept taking advantage of her.
Yeah, something like that happened to me. We had an open notebook test one day, and I didn't know it was an open notebook, and so someone asked me to borrow my notebook so they could study for the test. So I let them, but then when the time for the class began, I walked in there and I didn't have my notebook, and they used it for the whole entire test, so I wasn't able to have any help for the test at all.
Yeah, I had an experience like that when this other kid in a different religion class than I was randomly IM'd me on the computer and just asked for half of my homework, which I work really hard on, and it was like an hour and a half like outline, and I gave him half of it, and he just kept asking for it all the time, and I didn't even know this kid. Like, I've seen him once, and he just somehow got my screen and knew I was in that class, and I just felt completely used and ripped apart after that. So.
Yeah, like when I was younger, I was doing my world history homework, and my friend came and he asked to borrow it, so I let him take it, and a teacher caught him. So like, I didn't want to get in trouble, so I was like, he took the book from me, and my friend didn't like say anything, he just went with it. So we didn't get in trouble, but like it was sort of both ways. Like, I used him to get out of trouble, and he used me to get the homework.
I remember one time I was walking and I got a random text message from one of my friends, and he had asked me a question about driving, and it was a really specific multiple choice question. So as I'm walking and texting, I'm thinking, okay, let me put two and two together. He's taking some type of test. He kept texting me questions, asking me, and I'm thinking, okay, you must be somewhere in the motor vehicle taking a test or something. And I'm thinking, okay, let me just close my phone.
A friend who constantly uses you is not a loyal friend. In fact, he or she's not a friend at all.
The Book of Sirach compares a loyal friend to a safe shelter.
Find one and you have found a treasure. Nothing else is as valuable.
There is no way of putting a price on it.
A loyal friend is like a medicine that keeps you in good health.
Only those who fear the Lord can find such a friend.
A person who fears the Lord can make real friendships because he will treat his friends as he does himself.
What else can our faith teach us about how we treat and respect others and not using them for our own needs?
That's what we ask the teens in the street.
Let's check it out.
You should always respect people and their rights and their ideas and stuff like that.
You should respect anybody that respects you, and even if they don't, you should give them the respect that you wish to get back.
I'm not really big on faith, but I don't think you should use others.
It's probably best to treat others the way you want to be treated.
I think that was just a lesson that's always been taught. Just kind of to take care of others as you'd hope they'll do to you.
It's kind of like a basic lesson that you're taught as a kid.
Oh, it tells me like to try to get stuffs, to get my things that I want through other ways, you know, like, and not through using people and friends.
Not to use people like that, and you should just use them as your friends. That's what they're there for.
Treat people like they need to be treated. Do not treat them wrong, because it's always going to come back onto you.
What does your faith teach you about respecting others and not using them for your own needs?
It teaches you to see things from other people's perspectives and realize that it's not all about you. There's other people that are going to be affected by your decisions, and you should try to keep them in mind too.
How has faith helped you in situations where people have used you or vice versa?
Could using another person for your own gain be considered a sin?
I definitely think it could be a sin, because like a lot of us said, how people would be using each other to get homework ideas. So basically you're stealing from somebody, you're stealing answers, you're stealing everybody's own work, their ideas, their own thoughts.
Another version of that is when you take homework or copy or cheat on a test, like I said before, you're diminishing your own education. You go to school to learn, and if you use somebody else's work to get further along in your education, what are you learning?
I think some people, by using others, do the opposite of what Jesus tells us to do, which is when you give, you receive. So that's why I think using people turns out in a bad way.
And like Jesus told us, treat others as you would like to be treated. And if you're using someone, you don't want to be used. So that's kind of what they're saying.
Finally, let's go back to our spotlight guest Danielle, where she talks about the sinful nature of using others.
And how prayer can help those who feel used to gain back their confidence and self-respect.
I guess in a way I kind of do think it's a sin to use others to get ahead, because you're cheating yourself and you're lying to yourself, and you're really cheating the other person too in a way, because you're just using them. And cheating and lying are both sins. My faith teaches me a lot about respecting others and not using them for your own needs. As a Christian, as a Catholic, I'm always taught to respect others and be nice to people and treat people the way you really want to be treated. And I don't feel that it's right to use others and to cheat people, or to cheat yourself even. I don't think it's right at all. When you put yourself in a situation where you're being used, you're not respecting yourself and you're not respecting who you are. But if you respect yourself and you can stand up for yourself, then other people will respect you, and maybe you'll find yourself not being used so much. I feel that prayer gives someone confidence, and self-esteem, to have respect for themselves and realize and come to terms that, they are being used and it's not right to be used. God can help them get through it, and I don't know, I know for me, I'm really deep in my faith, and when I pray to God, I know that He's listening, and I know that He's there, and I know that He's helping me, and He wants me to be the best that I can be. So I think prayer does help a lot.
Christ said in the Beatitudes that the meek will inherit the earth. And I think that applies to using people, because a lot of times when we use people, we have this sense that our needs are more important than their needs. And I think we have to learn to be humble, and not step on the backs of others to, climb the ladder to whatever we want to do. As we were all created in God's own image, we're all individuals of worth.
Sometimes we have a specific ability that makes us valuable in a particular situation, but that ability does not define us as a person, just as our shortcomings do not.
It's hurtful to us when our needs, desires, or feelings are ignored, so that another can focus only on what we can offer to them.
When we treat another person as a whole, as an individual of worth who has many attributes and needs beyond those that benefit us,
we can share a mutual relationship and keep from taking advantage of them.
What can we do to avoid using others to get ahead? Do we have to compensate everyone who helps us?
It's not always necessary to pay back someone who has helped you in the same exact way.
Often, it's not even possible.
How does your faith guide you to make the right decision when it comes to people using others to get ahead?
We'd love to hear from you.
Email us through our website.
The address is www.realfaithtv.com.
Or you can call us at 609-406-7402.
And we'll leave you today with the book of 1 Peter.
You must all have the same attitude and the same feelings.
Love one another as brothers and be kind and humble with one another.
Do not pay back evil with evil or cursing with cursing. Instead,
pay back with a blessing, because a blessing is what God promised to give you when He called.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on
Realfaith TV. God bless.